Wow, what an interesting start to the season. A lot to go over, a lot to get into, highs, lows, this weekend at everything.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasko. Carter First, too. A lot of you guys have been reaching out on the Twitter, the Instagram, the TikTok. It's all back up and rolling along. Again, if you haven't subscribed here to YouTube already, make sure you do that. If you're listening anywhere else, go over to the YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. It keeps us at the top of your guys' page. You guys will get the reels, the shorts, the live streams, podcasts, everything, videos as well. I guess, Carter, a lot to get into, and we want to touch on some big topics, but there was so much that happened. And maybe this is the best place to start. How do you feel about 2-2 against the Orioles? I mean, we talked about the first game on the Friday episode. We were pretty low. But now they go 2-1 the rest of the weekend. Start out the season 500. How do you feel?
Overall, if we talk about 2-2 before we had this slate of games, didn't love it. I'm okay with 2-2. I don't think it's the end of the world, but with the Baltimore Orioles' current roster right now, with all their pitching injuries, with Gunnar Henderson out, I would have liked 3 out of 4. But then you see how the Thursday game went. You see how opening day went. This team got absolutely demolished, 12-2. At that point, 2 out of 3, I'm definitely happy with. After that, you get that split, you get a bounce back win. Pretty much the exact opposite of how the Thursday game went. That Friday game, 8-2 win. Then you have 9-5, a loss to the Orioles because of some bullpen arms that we're going to go into. Obviously, an injury in that game as well. And then today, or at the day we're recording this, the Sunday, the Hound on the Mound, just a classic Chris Bassitt performance. So with all things considered, I think it's a pretty good series by the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, there is some negatives that did come out of the series, and they have an absolute gauntlet ahead of them. But in retrospect, a 2-2 series against the Baltimore Orioles, it's not hurting you. It's not necessarily helping you either, but they're still in an okay spot. It's only 4 games in.
Yeah, I'm not really taking a whole lot out of this. Again, like even little things as we go through the podcast today, there's going to be things that I touch on, but it's so early to make a complete judgment call. We had people texting us after that first game, writing this team off. They're horrible, blah, blah, blah. And this is an 162 game season, and you're going to make a split judgment after one game. It's like, just take a step back, remind yourself that you have been missing baseball for months and it's finally back. And the first thing people want to do is complain. It blows my mind. But not saying that I don't have complaints as well. I'm just not going to make a snap judgment call after the first series. There are things that worry me. There are things that I really like. So I think, Carter, let's go back. Let's go back to game 2, the Friday game. This is where you see who I think I said maybe should have been opening day starter was Kevin Gausman. It is what it is. You got game 2, and he pitched a gem. I really liked what Kevin Gausman was doing out there. I have to start with him because out of the negatives, the positives, there's a couple great positives, and I think Kevin Gausman was one of those big positives.
Absolutely, he was one of those positives. When you have Jose Berrios coming up on the Thursday, expecting it to start from, you don't get that. You get absolutely demolished. Blue Jays fan base pretty low, especially after the expectations in 2024. You needed that bounce back win. You needed to get not only the fan base, but the roster, the players, everyone back in. Got to realize, hey, it's just the first game. Again, there is 162 games in an MLB season, but it is very easy to overreact. I mean, again, you only have that one game to review and look at for this Toronto Blue Jays team. But then you have that bounce back game on that Friday. Kevin Gausman, absolute gem. The splitter fastball combo was back. The splitter was working once again. 17 of his 18 outs in the game were from the splitter or the fastball. That's Kevin Gausman's bread and butter. If his splitter is off, if his fastball is off, he's probably not going to have a very good start. So it's definitely nice to see that Kevin Gausman had a very good and successful start to the season. And also the fastball velo was pretty nice to see as well. Really sitting around 95, 96 the majority of the game. And even in the 6th inning, he was touching 96 with a lot of his fastballs. So just seeing that velocity keep up throughout the entire appearance as well. Another positive there from Kevin Gausman. But how about the offense as well? We got to talk about the offense in this game. Only player on the Toronto Blue Jays without a hit on the Friday game was unfortunately Alan Roden, but you had multiple 2-hit efforts. You had a bunch of guys throughout the order contributing. That's how you get the 8 runs. Anthony Santander hitting balls in the dirt. Ernie Clement has a pinch hit. Same thing. Just we have two, it seems like the best bad ball hitters in the MLB on our baseball team. You go last year, Ernie Clement hitting the one at his head and then also golfing it out too. So it's always nice, any sort of pitch, whether it's, at their face or it's like pretty much in the dirt, they can still somehow have a successful hit, a successful at bat. So a lot of good things, obviously, to see from that Friday, especially coming off of that Thursday performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about the offense. And I made a tweet, I think it was after the Thursday game, about, the ability to hit in bunches. That's how you win baseball games. If you're not a team that's going to hit 6 home runs in a game, like the Yankees, you have to be able to hit in bunches and you have to be able to score runs that way. And that was one of my biggest complaints is all throughout last season and on the Thursday game was not seeing them do that. And then they come in really for the rest of the weekend. There was spurts. You were seeing it better, them be able to, tie hits together, right? It was somebody would go up and then somebody'd be walked and then another hit and then a walk and then another hit. It was great. It was good to see the positiveness, I think, of the sacrifice fly. That's another big thing. You weren't seeing guys be upset because they didn't get the hit to the home run. They were thrilled they were able to drive in that run. They were pumped up. The team's high-fiving. Good vibes through it. That's the one thing I saw post Thursday game in the dugout. A lot of good vibes. Everybody seems to be getting along. I see Max Scherzer, which we'll get into, sort of spitting some stuff with some guys there. They're chatting about whatever. He's got the iPad out. He's going over things. It was just really nice to see.
Yeah, you love to see just the boys getting, shooting it around, having a good time in the dugout. You want to see positiveness, especially early on in the season. You want to see that confidence. You want to see the gel, especially when you have some new faces in that dugout. You got Santander, Andrus Gimenez, who is fitting in pretty nicely so far. Obviously, Jeff Hoffman, who's going to be a great piece. A lot of those guys, obviously, making those bonds a little bit closer and, forming some of those relationships from some of those guys that they don't necessarily know. Obviously, over 162 game season, those guys are probably going to get to know each other pretty well. Last thing I wanted to go over in that second game is one thing that I love to see is that you brought up that sacrifice fly thing. I think everyone was just doing their job. Nobody was trying to do too much. You had Alan Roden come up, sacrifice fly. You just missed that too. Almost, I think, could have hit a home run there. You have Will Wagner, multi-hit game. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. comes up, hits a sac fly. That's not exactly what we want from Vladdy, but you see his reaction. Fist bump immediately. He knows, hey, we have one out. There's a runner on third. Do a job. Get that ball into the outfield and get another run. Another thing I want to bring up that was nice as well. A lot of the time we saw the Toronto Blue Jays when they did score, and they did score a lot of runs in one inning, they would score in that inning 4, 5, 6 runs, and that would be it. Their offense would just be, they take their foot off the gas, and you would not see even many hits whatsoever throughout the rest of the game. You add another 2 in, I believe it was the 7th inning. You add another one in the 8th inning. You add multiple innings after that big 5-run inning where you add on to the lead. It was a 5-2 ball game. You make it 6-2, then you make it 8-2. That's exactly what you need. Not let the Baltimore Orioles with that good of a lineup crawl back in another game like that.
Yeah, and you know what, Carter, we had still a ton more to get into, but I couldn't agree with you more on that piece. The ability to hit in bunches, the ability to score runs in multiple innings, where you're right. It's not just a one inning, they got to score 10 runs, otherwise they're not going to score again. It's nice to see them starting to move away from that. But before we go into our second segment here, I'm going to talk about a piece from Game 3, a little bit, because Max Scherzer, you can't have him go out there and throw 3 innings. Obviously, he was rushed back and was not ready. I think the writing was on the wall for that one. And this was to hopefully save bullpen arms early in the season. He wanted to be a piece that was going to come out here and make a difference. And I think they, not just the Blue Jays, but even himself, rushed himself back. And obviously that was the wrong decision because you can't pitch 3 innings and expect that to be okay for for the rest of the series. It wrecks your team for the rest of the series when you're not able to do your job, at least go in there and pitch 5 innings.
Yeah, it's tough when you saw it lingering last year. You see it lingering in spring training. You have Max Scherzer talking about it in spring training, how it does become a problem, how it becomes a problem around the 45, 50 pitch mark. That's exactly what happened on that Saturday game. He gets to that pitch mark, and it starts becoming a problem again. I have some quotes here. This is from Schneider. Max Scherzer says the lat soreness that he experienced, that's why he was removed from the game. But he said it was 100% related to the thumb, felt discomfort in warm-ups, but tried to fight through it to save that bullpen. At least he got 3 innings. I mean, it would have been way worse if you only get, 2/3, get 1 inning. At least 3 innings is something. It's not ideal, obviously, but it does save your bullpen a little bit there. Left the game when he said he felt imminent danger of a significant injury. And then he goes on to say, I got to get this to 100% before I pitch again. So I don't like, they put him on a 15-day IL. I don't really have a timetable for Max Scherzer, unfortunately. I think it could be up to a month. I think it could be a little bit sooner than that. I think the soonest it might be is within 2 weeks. I think he's going to miss for sure 2 starts. So now we have this trickle down effect that we're going to have to unfortunately talk about, is when you do have a Max Scherzer injury in that starting rotation, you really don't have a ton of guys to go to. You don't want to throw up Jake Bloss, a week into the season. That's not exactly what you're looking for. You do have an option now with Yariel Rodriguez, but as we're going to talk about in the second segment, you already have some lower leverage bullpen arms that you can't necessarily trust. Now you're taking Yariel Rodriguez from the bullpen, who hasn't necessarily been even that good this season. Now he's going to have to be a starting pitcher. Now you don't have a lot of starting depth, and now your bullpen takes another hit, removing Yariel Rodriguez. Assuming this is what they do, they put him as their starter, at least for the short term.
Yeah, and there are options. We talk about guys like Easton Lucas who could come up and make a spot start here and there. Again, don't love that. He doesn't look fantastic, but he might be able to go out there and get you 4 innings, and then you maybe go to maybe you do that what Yariel and Bowden were doing there for a bit, and you go Easton Lucas, Yariel Rodriguez. Hopefully, you can get 2 or 3 out of him, and then it can save you some arms in the future. I don't know what the right play is. I don't know what they're thinking. So the Max Scherzer situation is not good. It's going to hurt this team. But this is exactly what we knew was part of this. You when you signed Max Scherzer to that deal, you knew this was a possibility. So everybody freaking out, it's like, well, what did you think was going to happen? This was in the cards all along. You weren't going to get 200 innings out of Max Scherzer. If you get 80 innings out of Max Scherzer, I think you're over the moon. So to sit here and think, oh, well, the front office knew what they were doing when they signed Max Scherzer. They knew what the risk was. They knew what the reward could be. If you get Max Scherzer not injured for key games, at least until Alek Manoah comes back, then you're laughing. He got injured. It's part of the game of baseball. How many pitchers have gone down with injury in the past 3 years? I don't know. You could go out and sign somebody and they could need Tommy John the next week. It is what it is.
I agree with part of what you said there. Like, I agree with, there is obviously, they know the risk when assessing Max Scherzer. Do they expect him to be injured in his first start of the season?
No,
I don't think
not.
you can absolutely say that. I don't think that you're expecting him to get injured at the start of the season. I think that's where this is a huge problem, is that if you had Max Scherzer, you get injured somewhere in the middle of the year. Again, you didn't expect Max Scherzer to go out and pitch 25, 30 starts in the season, but you did expect him. I think he has to throw more than 80 innings if you're going to pay him over $15 million for it to be a successful contract. But again, you're not having Max Scherzer to pitch those 150 innings. For me, you have Max Scherzer until Alek Manoah gets back. You get some reinforcements back when it comes to July, it comes to August. You wanted Max Scherzer healthy early on in the season to put you in a good spot. Now you don't have that. They did call up Easton Lucas, so it's either Yariel Rodriguez starts, but since, again, he has been struggling, maybe they have Easton Lucas on the roster now. Maybe they just throw him in there. They don't take away from the bullpen even more. They still keep Yariel as a long man. Maybe it's Easton Lucas for those 2 spot starts. This isn't supposed to be a super long injury for Max Scherzer, but the fact that it has been hampering him for the last month and a bit already, I feel like the timetable might be a little bit longer than they're leading on. So I feel like just with this Max Scherzer situation, it's just terrible timing, obviously, this early on for the season to happen. But you did understand the risk of signing 41-year-old Max Scherzer to the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and it's horrible. Obviously, you wanted him, like we talked about, to be there until Alek Manoah gets back, and then whatever happens, happens. But in the same respect, this situation was handled very poorly because you knew he had a thumb issue going on that was going to affect him. And instead, you let him go out there for his first start of the season. instead of, hey, let's get on top of this and make sure this is healed. And then maybe he only misses 2 starts. But now it looks like it maybe could be more. So not just the contract, whatever. It's done. You deal with it. But now to go and then handle the situation poorly again, I think a terrible move here. I don't know who was the decision maker on this. I think it was a bad decision to put Max Scherzer in. As much as I wanted to see him pitch, I wanted to see him pitch more than 3 innings.
For me, at the end of the day, if you're Max Scherzer, you're a grizzled vet in this league. I think you got to know your own body at this point of your career. I get you want to go out and you want to help your team. It's the first start of the season. You don't want to miss that start. But at this point, you know how that right thumb has been bothering you. Again, from the start of the game, those quotes, it's been a problem around 45, 50 pitches. It seemed like he kind of knew that it was going to be a problem once again. So at the end of the day, I think that's the last say. If Max Scherzer knows that he's not going to be ready to go, I think that's the decision that he's, at the end of the day, is going to have to make. But again, when it's last minute, you don't really have another option. It's the third game of the season. You're kind of in a tough spot. So I think, again, this could have been handled a little bit better from both sides, from the front office, from whoever the injury staff, whoever is involved with the medical and the health of Max Scherzer. But it ultimately comes down to Max Scherzer. You got to know your body. You got to know what you'll be able to do. And hopefully he can just have a very stable recovery. And we do only see Max Scherzer be away from this team for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we got more to talk about. Obviously, we got to address the bullpen problems, what's going on there. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll cover all that, plus what else happened in Game 3, talk about Game 4, and tee up the next series here for you guys. So stick around. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Yeah, I always talk about how much I love FanDuel because their boosts, their bonuses, their rewards, it's all fantastic. Like right now, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I said this a while ago. My brother hopped on it. He got the bonus bets. He used that for opening day. It was a ton of fun. March Madness is also here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. That's 200 extra bucks using everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've been betting on March Madness because I enjoy watching it. I'm not a big NBA guy, but March Madness is something better. It's it's a little scrappy basketball. A lot of one seeds winning, but it is what it is. So hopefully you guys are, picking what games you like to bet on, finding little things. They got so many options. You guys really can take a big look. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. So Carter, it's time. We got to talk about it. I'm going to eat a little bit of crow right here before we get into this. I said that Yariel or Ryan Yarbrough or Lovelady or Barnes or whoever, it didn't matter because I didn't believe that Ryan Yarbrough was, I don't know how much better he was. And I still don't. So I'm sort of sticking by that because I don't know what Ryan Yarbrough is going to be this year. He could go out there and be a shell. But this was so much worse than I thought. Like even if Ryan Yarbrough is a 6.5 ERA, Richard Lovelady was an absolute bomb. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He was horrible. He looked terrible. And I don't know what they saw in this guy. I don't know if Ryan Yarbrough helps. I don't know if you adding him in here before, obviously. By the way, we had a comment that said, you guys run this podcast. You guys don't even know Ryan Yarbrough's on the Yankees. It's like this conversation goes back like 4 podcasts, this argument that we're having. So yes, we're well aware. But the problem is that they signed Ryan Yarbrough, they let him go, and now they have Lovelady and Barnes and whoever else. I said I didn't think it was a big enough gap for this to really be a huge topic of conversation. And I don't know if Ryan Yarbrough would have been the solve. I sort of stick by that because I don't know what he's going to be. But this back end of this bullpen is horrible. And I don't even want to throw Barnes into the same category as Lovelady because Lovelady was so bad. I was getting so frustrated watching that inning and being like, this is horrible. Like debatably, I go out there throwing 60 miles an hour and I might have done better because I'm not plunking guys in the back. So I don't know. This was terrible, Carter. So I'm going to eat a little bit of crow on that one. I'll accept it, but I'm not 100% on your side completely on the Ryan Yarbrough. But I think this bullpen needs to be better. That's where I'll put myself.
This was my biggest thing when discussing the Ryan Yarbrough saga. I said I get it when you look at Ryan Yarbrough and then you have Yariel Rodriguez. When you're looking at a bullpen, the traditional way you compromise a bullpen, obviously you have your high leverage, low leverage guys, but traditionally you have at least one long reliever in your bullpen. You have Ryan Yarbrough that can do that. You have Yariel Rodriguez that can do that. Who does it better? Whatever. That can be a separate argument. But you have one guy that you want in your bullpen. You probably don't need two guys to do the exact same thing. The reason that they went with a guy like Richard Lovelady is they wanted that more traditional left-handed arm out of the bullpen. They wanted a guy that can go in that one inning spot and get some outs, get some strikeouts, get a ground ball. When you have Ryan Yarbrough, maybe you can get that ground ball. But when you're throwing 87, 88, is that a guy that you kind of want to throw into that situation when he is more, I think, more effective when he does go in that kind of long relief role? I think that's where Ryan Yarbrough sat. My main thing here is that I knew that Richard Lovelady was not a good pitcher. My biggest thing was you look at the back end or the front end of this bullpen back, and I think of like Jeff Pop and Yimi Garcia, but you look at Jacob Barnes, you look at Richard Lovelady, you look at how their careers have gone, zero success really in the big leagues, not a lot of upside there. When you have like Mason Fluharty, who they called up, Richard Lovelady obviously off the team as well, that experiment ended very quickly, which I was pleasantly surprised about. I didn't think they would do it that quickly, which is obviously good to see. But I don't know, like, why don't you go Mason Fluharty, who has higher upside by far than Richard Lovelady right off the rip? Why are you even experimenting with the Lovelady stuff when he wasn't even that good in spring training anyway? Jacob Barnes, that's not exactly what you wanted to go with because you wanted it to be Zach Pop, who again got DFA, now not on the team. Wanted it to be Ryan Burr, wanted to be Erik Swanson. He's not going to be there long term. But when, again, it's opening day and you're rolling out Richard Lovelady, you're rolling out Jacob Barnes, and it's exactly what happens. Max Scherzer gets injured early on. You got to have some of your lower leverage guys to eat some of those innings, especially with the injury. Richard Lovelady comes in and gives up moonball after moonball, 4 earned runs, and that's pretty much the ball game right there. And that's kind of what I said, is that when you have some of these lower leverage guys that you're going to have to pitch in ball games. It's baseball. There's injuries. There's guys that don't perform up to standards. They're not pitching as many innings as you expect. And you're going to have some bullpen guys come in. And when they're not up to par and they're going in and they're completely blowing your baseball game, they're not even giving you a chance to win, that's where I had an issue with it.
No, and I'm with you. I never said that Richard Lovelady was good or Jacob Barnes was good. I've seen what their careers have been. I just also have seen the effectiveness. I just don't think you expect what Ryan Yarbrough did last year. I don't think you can expect that again out of him. And that was my argument on that point. I think he was going to be worse. And again, we'll see how he is with the Yankees. I think he's not going to be what everybody's up in arms, but he might be horrible as well. To the point of maybe what you were trying to make is you don't as much care if it is Ryan Yarbrough or it's Flaherty.
It's got to be somebody else. And not Flaherty, other than Barnes and Lovelady, obviously.
And that I'm with. That I'm on board because they were looking at these guys, and for them to make the decision to go with these back-end bullpen guys, I thought they would have had to see something, an inkling of that they were going to be good. Something. But why pick two guys? It was like they had names in a hat, and they were just selecting them. I don't get it. It's over. Lovelady is done. Great move on their part for the quick reaction. This is something we've hammered this front office about, this management team about, is not reacting quick enough. You wait too long and it hurts you for too many games. They make this move. Good. And that's about all I can go on this. I think this was handled well as it could have been for the mishandling of it originally. But quick reaction, that's what I want to see. Things are not going to always go your way. You got to be able to pivot right away, and they did that. So good on them.
See, and with these bullpen arms, we always talk about the trial and error. You can't just go out and sign every single high leverage guy. But at least, for example, like with Genesis Cabrera, the stuff's there. A high fastball guy, a high fastball velo from the left side. You could see how Genesis Cabrera could help the baseball team. Yeah. Richard Lovelady, there's no upside there. He's not young. He doesn't have A+ stuff. He doesn't have the velo. There's nothing really there that's selling me on a guy like Richard Lovelady. At least a guy with Mason Fluharty, you don't really know what there's about. There's a lot of uncertainty there, but he's a younger guy. He is a prospect from the Toronto Blue Jays system. You can kind of see what he has to offer this organization. And there is some upside there. He can turn out into something good. Whereas you have 34, 35-year-old Jacob Barnes, who hasn't really made it anywhere in the MLB, and the Richard Lovelay. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me with some of the choices that they did make, when like even Josh Walker, I think, would have been better. I think Mason Fluharty would have been better. Even if you have Easton Lucas somehow in the bullpen, I think that would have been a whole lot better. Amir Garrett, I just think that was the complete wrong decision on that part. But again, maybe we're not talking about this as much if Lovelady and Barnes don't get absolutely shelled in the third game of this Baltimore Orioles series. But other than that, is there anything you want to bring up in that game 3? I guess we'll talk about the Andrus Gimenez stuff maybe a little bit, and just for the next segment as well.
Yeah, you know what?
Next point.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about Andrus Gimenez, because I think he is if not Bo Bichette being completely and utterly back, Andrus Gimenez is the next big storyline probably. I think there was a lot of doubt around him. Offensively, defensively, you're seeing it. Every game you're seeing him make a great defensive play. And he is as advertised. Offensively, the question marks are there. I remember you were in the live stream even on the Thursday game. But then he does it again. And he continues to be fairly decent offensively. And maybe this doesn't last. But to see this production already from him gives me a little bit more hope from where I started with him being signed.
Yeah, I think like for what Andrus Gimenez, the role he should be in, you would think on a regular baseball team, Andrus Gimenez has been very surprising so far, and it's been very good for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think where we're going to get at is long term, is Andrus Gimenez the fix in that cleanup spot? It's 4 games in the season. Can't really get too excited. I know he hit 2 home runs. Fun to see, obviously, especially from a spot in the lineup that we haven't really had success from over the last few seasons. But that's a whole nother kind of can of worms to open. There's so much to talk about after a weekend series, especially, your opening day baseball weekend. Talk about Jeff Hoffman just being unbelievable out there. We haven't even talked about the Hound on the mound. There's so much that we're going to go into, and I think we're kind of going to go over it as the week carries on, because we still have a series to preview. We still have a gauntlet of a Toronto Blue Jays schedule that we haven't gone over. That's the fun about baseball being back. There's so much to talk about, and there will be more than enough time for us to do it. But I think quickly we'll just throw in some Game 4 stuff, and then we'll preview that Washington National Series. Start with the Hound on the mound. Just working through a little bit of work. Had a lot of time where he was running into some trouble, but at the end of the day, when you go 6 innings, when you only give up 1 run off of a wild pitch, can't really complain about Chris Bassitt and his performance in Game 4.
No, dude, this is Chris Bassitt as advertised. Hey, I'm gonna put myself in some very horrible situations, but I'm just going to figure it out and work through it anyway. This is the epitome of Bassitt. 26 pitches he threw?
106. 126 was the record we were talking about off camera.
The
most, the highest pitch total of a first starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. So in their first start of the season, 126 is the record. Chris Bassitt gets up to 106, but you don't normally see on a pitcher's first start getting over that 100 pitch mark. But with Chris Bassitt, I kind of did some looking into this from the spring training, and it did look like he ramped up a little bit in spring training, having an 85 pitch start and then a 92 pitch start in his last 2 starts of spring training. Seemed like he was willing and able to go 95, 100, and then we see 106 that we got from Chris Bassitt. Very interesting to see. You're at 89 pitches after the 5th inning, and Chris Bassitt obviously wanted to get back in there, and for good reason. The guy is a veteran. The guy wants to pitch a lot of innings. He wants to eat innings, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Is I thought, I looked at the pitch, the amount of pitches, and I'm like, oh man, he's at 89. He's probably not coming back out. And then he strolls out there like he wanted it. You could tell he wanted to be back out there. So I absolutely love that. You have to know yourself, and this is going back to a little bit to the Max Scherzer stuff. You got to know when you're on and when you're not on. And if you're on and you can go 10, 12, 15 extra pitches and get through another inning because you know you're feeling good, do that. You're the best person that's going to know how you're feeling that day. So I absolutely love that from Chris Bassitt. Big shout out to him. I know you said Hoffman looked good. He is a absolute dog. The one guy I got to shout out, though, I mean, maybe storyline of the season, Tyler Heineman's home run.
Yeah, you love to see it. Second home run of his career. First one since 2019. A little bit crazy, obviously. I love seeing how fired up he was just down the bases. Give a few fist bumps. I guess, when you only hit 1 home run every 5 or so years, going to mean a little bit more to you than, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting those typical 30 home runs. But yeah, 101 off the bat, 386, no downer to left field. Who would have thought? at this point in time, Tyler Heineman has more home runs than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Anthony Santander. We combine them, he has more home runs.
One more thing before we hit the break. How are you feeling about George?
Oh, I love it right now.
Yeah.
Him being, I think, in the middle of the order is benefiting him so much, taking a little bit of the pressure off and of the top of the order. Him hitting 5-6. He came through multiple times, came through big in I think it was the first inning with runners in scoring position, runners on third and second base. George Springer, if he can hit like that in that 5 spot, even if it's slightly better than last year, you get 19 home runs from George Springer in the 5 spot. I'm going to be completely okay with that. I think that adjustment for George Springer is going to help this team so much more in the future. If he can stay consistent and just provide some sort of production in that middle of the order. Maybe that's the middle of the order bat that we've been looking for.
That's right. And you know what? The way that this has worked out, again, do I think Andrus Gimenez is the number 4 hole guy? Probably not long term.
I don't love Springer there either. I think there is still a glaring hole on this team where they don't really have a traditional cleanup hitter right now.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And probably what that is maybe not finding a cleanup hitter. Maybe it's finding probably a 2-hole hitter more so, right? Because I've been loving Bichette leading off. I don't want to move him. But that number 2 spot, maybe that's where you can slot somebody in and give Vladdy and Santander more of an opportunity to drive in even more runs. Because, yeah, again, the home runs aren't there for them yet, but they're going to come. With those 2 guys, they're going to come.
And this is something that can be platooned as well. You got right-handers. Will Wagner's had a very good series. See, there's so much stuff that we just don't even have time to talk about. But the lineup could change. I think there's a lot of things in the works. I don't think Andrus Gimenez, or at least I hope Andrus Gimenez is not going to be the cleanup hitter for the entire season. But again, we'll have to see what happens. If Andrus Gimenez, can hit a home run every series. I mean, I don't think that too many people are going to be complaining about the production that we do get from him. But saying that, we do have a series to preview. The Toronto Blue Jays 2-2 after the first series against the Baltimore Orioles, playing the Washington Nationals for their second series of the year. We got going to go over the pitching previews, going to go over our series predictions, bunch of things about the Washington Nationals playing the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to come at you guys with all of that coming up.
All right, Series 2 here. Toronto Blue Jays, Washington Nationals. I'm going to go over just the pitching matchups here. Again, we aren't going to dive too in depth into game 2 and 3. We'll do that sort of in the coming days. But I'm going to put it out there so we can give our series prediction as we like to do. Did either of us get it 100% right with what we got last series?
We both said 3-1. We didn't go over which game we thought the team would lose. But yeah, we were hoping for 3-1, obviously with the injuries and everything. 2-2, not necessarily upset about. Doesn't hurt the Toronto Blue Jays, doesn't necessarily help them either. I think it still was a missed opportunity. But with all things considered, we're at 500, playing 500 baseball, going against the Washington Nationals. Just going over the pitching previews of this series. First game, Bowden Francis making his first start of the season against Michael Soroka. Then the Tuesday, we have Jose Berrios hopefully making a bounce-back start against Trevor Williams. And then on the Wednesday, very good matchup here. Mackenzie Gore coming off of a 13 strikeout effort. Looked absolutely disgusting in his first game of the year versus Kevin Gausman, who didn't look too shabby himself. Right here, Blue Jays have an absolute gauntlet of a schedule that we'll go over, I think, in the next episode. We're already running a little bit late here, but they got a bunch of AL East teams. Got the Red Sox coming up. Got the Orioles once again. The Yankees are coming up. Got the Rangers somewhere in there. So there's a lot of good baseball teams that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to play. The Washington Nationals might be the worst team that they play in April, and I actually don't think the Washington Nationals are going to be that bad this season. So pretty tough schedule ahead. I think just with all things considered, with the schedule you have ahead, I think you do have to take 2 out of 3 here. I think, you got to continue with the momentum. You get a win against the Baltimore Orioles in game 4. Hopefully that can roll over, and they do take 2 out of 3 from the Washington Nationals this week.
Yeah, I have them losing game 1. I think that's again, Bowden's first start of the season. Maybe he does bring it, maybe he doesn't. I just think in classic Toronto Blue Jays fashion, we are coming off of feeling okay about how this series finished up. You move into the next one, and they drop game 1, and then you're like, oh my God, here we go again. And then they win the next 2, and then you're feeling great. And then you go to the next series, and they lose the first one, and it brings you back down to earth again. That is just how last year went. I'm hoping and praying to God it doesn't, but I think I have them losing that first game and winning the second 2.
See, I have similar thought process, but I have that as the opposite. I think they win the first 2 games, and I think Kevin Gausman goes out there, goes like 6 innings, only gives up 2 runs, and they're going to lose 2-1. Mackenzie
Yeah,
Gore's
I
just
think
going to
so
go
too.
out there. He's going to shove. He's going to continue the momentum that he started. And I think that's kind of the same idea. We're going to be kind of all in by that second game, and then it's going to be ripped a little bit away from us by game 3. But anyway, in the grand scheme of things, if you take 2 to 3 from the Washington Nationals, that is definitely going to be a successful series in my mind. But is obviously there's a ton more that I want to add, ton more you probably want to add, but we are going to go through this as the week does progress. But anything big, anything exciting that you want to mention that we might have missed throughout this episode?
Yeah, there is a lot. You got a shout out. I know you gave him a little bit of a shout out already, but Will Wagner. I've loved what he's done so far. I'm impressed. There are certain people in this team that are really impressing me. Alejandro Kirk, the way he deals with runners on base, the way he's framing his defensive game looks really good again. So I don't know. Again, this is what I'm saying. Early bet Alejandro Kirk Gold Glove. I'm just throwing it out there. It's a possibility. The way he's been playing defensively, I think. Again, the more he plays in that starting catcher role, I think the better he becomes. And again, just somebody take a look on FanDuel and tell me what the odds are at. That's all I want to know.
Yeah, Alejandro Kirk played 3 games in a row. So that's obviously a very good thing to see. We're probably going to see 120, 130 games from Alejandro Kirk, which is very nice when, again, traditionally you have Tyler Heineman isn't the greatest thing, but hey, the guy's launching all of a sudden. So maybe it's not the worst thing if you get Tyler Heineman in the lineup a time or two. But just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, subscriptions. Everything recently has been much appreciated. As baseball is back, we're obviously excited. You guys seem to be excited as well. We still have our fantasy league coming out. We got our graphics going with the scores every single day. Shorts coming out as well. A ton of content from our side going to be coming out to you guys. So ring the bell. Make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss any of our content. But yeah, got the Washington Nationals hopefully set up for another win, kind of continue the domino effect, and hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays can have a better start to the season than they did have last season. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.